Hey folks, this is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast. I just want to remind you about our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. We have a Facebook page. We would appreciate it if you like and follow. Also, join our discussion group on Facebook called After the Shadows. We have a Twitter feed. Please follow us on Twitter. It can be found with @podcast_from. Follow us on Instagram at From the Shadows Podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Go to the search bar at YouTube and put From the Shadows Podcast, and please subscribe to that channel. We are also on the Odyssey Radio Network, and we can be found there at odyssey1.com. We're still on the traditional podcatchers that everybody loves to listen to us on. We get a lot of feedback, so please rate the podcast and communicate with whether you're on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. We're there, and we appreciate it when you leave comments for us. We also have a Patreon page. It can be found at www.patreon.com/FromTheShadows. You can receive books, stickers, coffee mugs, and special content just for our Patreon subscribers. Check it out for yourself and see what packages that we have to offer. Well, that's all I have for you right now, folks, and thanks for being a part of the From the Shadows podcast family. So with that being said, let's get this episode started.
So, Howler, we got some people that reached out to us on social media. They're anxiously awaiting the gunfight story. So you're going to have to tell a gunfight story, and I hope it doesn't disappoint.
Well, it might. I don't know. You know, there's some people's threshold, as I've found since I've been an active reader of Twitter. Some people's, especially the 2A crowd, or some of the people out there, some people have a large threshold of tolerance for gunfight. So his particular gunfight, there was only one round fired, and it was over. But let me give you a little background about him, okay?
It doesn't sound like much of a fight. If there's one
well,
round.
you know, hey, a lot of times you can win or lose with one shot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever said movie American Sniper or whatever, I mean, he got in all them gunfights and usually only fired one shot. So anyhow, let me tell you how tough this kid grew up. His dad was a successful body man by the time we were in grade school, but his dad had been to the penitentiary back in the 60s when they really locked you up for stuff. And I don't remember what he did. He stole some copper wire or something back in the day where you went to the penitentiary the first time you got caught, right?
Yeah.
So, but my buddy's uncle was a no-shit biker. He was an El Fistero, which is a sister club of the, he was in the Galloping Goose, which is a sister club of the Hells Angels. Okay. So this kid grew up with tough dudes. Tough dudes. I'm going to tell you how tough. When his dad got to making a little money, when we were about 8th, 9th grade, 10th grade, 7th, 8th, 9th, something like that, they built a where I grew up was nothing but farms, and now it's really been subdivided a lot over the last 40 years. Okay. But at the time, we had a farm, and down the road a mile and a half or so, they were cutting up a piece of property and building these, houses with, when I say subdivision, 5, 6, every house had 5, 6, 7 acres, so it wasn't like they are now, but back in, that's the way. So his mom and dad built a brand new house, brick. I mean, it was a big deal to have a brand new brick house back in them days. But it was a grass fescue field that they had built these houses in. So all of these houses appeared to be just sitting out in the middle of, the grass. So the second thing people would do after building a house was plant these trees. So I remember his dad, Bruce called or whatever, hey, can you miss back, when you had to literally be near a corded phone to answer the phone. And he calls and says, hey, you want to come over here? I need help. We're going to help Dad plant some trees. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, bring your post hole digger. And you know what a real post hole digger with two handles is, right?
Oh, yeah. I've used it a couple times.
So I was invited, not necessarily for my physical prowess, but because we owned a post hole digger and his old man didn't want to buy one. So I bungee cord roped this I start roping this post hole digger on the bike, and then finally they felt bad for me. He called me, "You coming?" I said, "Yeah, I'm trying to find some rope to tie this post hole digger on there." And his old man said, "I'll come and get you." So they came over and got me. And we're digging these post holes, and he's got a half a dozen, I don't even know what kind of maple trees, maybe, whatever. But you know how they got a big root ball?
Yep.
And his old man went out and staked out. So we walked around and dug. They weren't that deep, right? 18 inches across and a couple feet deep probably is all it was. It seemed, when you're in 8th grade, it seems like a hell of a lot. So,
yeah.
Well, you know how it is, right? You're in 8th grade,
yeah.
You think it seems like a hell of a lot. So I was in 7th or 8th grade, and he was a year and a half older than me. So, I'm 11, 12, and he's 13, 14, right? So this root ball's got this burlap sack around it,
Mm-hmm.
and his dad's standing up. I finished the hole. He says, "I think that's good enough." We set that tree down there, and he tells Bruce, his old man tells Bruce, "Hey, you got a pocket knife to cut that?" And Bruce, and what he had been showing me all week, was he had a real switchblade. And maybe they were against the law at the time, I don't remember, but it seems to me all the cool shit was a no-no. So whether it was against the law, really, or just metaphorically. But so, like an idiot, because he kept telling me all week, "Hey, don't tell anybody I got this," as he's flipping the switchblade out, right? Like real
one of those butterflies.
No, like a real. No, like a real hit the button switchblade.
Okay, all right.
Like a real. Oh yeah, because we'd already been through the butterfly knives, nunchucks, throwing stars, seen it all, man, done it all, right?
Yeah.
He had a real, and I forgot where he got it. I think the boy, he got it from he had a big sister, and everybody that had a big sister back then had degenerates sniffing around all the time, right? So
of course.
He got it from his sister. What eventually is, before this kid was killed on a motorcycle accident, his sister's baby's daddy. But that was a rarity back in them days. So he had this switchblade. So he's sitting there on his knees. He pulls out this switchblade and goes, and his old man says, "Now just cut that twine at the top, and you can just unwrap it, and it'll fall down in that hole, and just leave it, and then hand me that knife." And that's the way his old man said, just flat like that. He's telling him how to cut it. Just cut the string, let it flap down, and hand me that knife. And Bruce cuts it and flaps it down like he's supposed to. And then he makes a big production out of folding that knife closed and putting it back in his pocket. And his old man's just standing right there. And we're around this, 18-inch hole with a fruit tree in it or whatever. And his old man looks down and says, "Hey, did you not hear me? Give me that knife." And Bruce said, "No, it's my knife." And probably before he said no and before he got the knife out of his hand, his old man gives him just a short jab. Pow! Right to the mouth. Pow!
Yep.
Bruce falls down. Well, you were raised by an old man like you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, this is back when shit was rough. These kids nowadays are candy asses, but you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Pow! And he said, "Now hand me the knife." Oh, I'm going to tell you, he gave him the freaking knife then. So we go around, it's funny. We go around playing all these trees, and at each one, he's got to ask his old man for the knife, and his old man gives it back to him. You know what I mean? So we do that 2, 3, 4 times or whatever, and playing all these trees. So that's just a little background to how tough this kid grew up. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So his sister had this house trailer, and it was nice. It's not like it wasn't people back in the days. You remember? I don't know what part of Ohio you're from. So people used to buy a house trailer. So she bought a house trailer.
Nice house trailer. Yeah, they used to keep them
nice.
nice.
House trailer. Yep. Keep them, and hers was in a trailer park full of real nice nice mobile homes. And somehow she ended up, when her baby's daddy got killed on a motorcycle. After that, she was able to buy a real house and get a husband and go on with the rest of her life. But she had this mobile home that she couldn't sell. So, and I don't remember if her dad had co-signed or maybe her own man bought it from her. It doesn't matter. That the typical thing to do is find a member of your family that you trust and let them live in this mobile home, right? So Bruce got to live in this thing, and it was I can't call him Kenny Powers because he's not that funny, okay? But it could have been a skit. I mean, you could have wired it up, and it would have been a darker version of Trailer Park Boys. I mean, it'd been like Trailer Park Boys meets Kung Fu or something. Because even to this day, I mean, I took my boys to meet him when I was moving back to Missouri. When I was moving back, it was one of the first things I did was call him out. I wanted to bring my kids down there, and I don't know if I've told you the story or not, it's a whole nother story about. But I mean, it's samurai swords and electric guitars and Harley Davidson motorcycles. You know what I mean? That's just his world, right? Well, a buddy of his and my big brothers that went in the Navy, and this plays an integral part in the story because he would be dead if it wasn't for this. Okay, these guys jack around with guns too now, and I don't remember if I might have worked in the jail by that time, maybe not, because I started working in law enforcement when I was 21. I went to cop school when I was 20, and I got a job when I was 20. Anyway, this deputy that I know run into me, and I don't remember, for some reason, I think I was working in the jail. And he said, "Hey, we just left out there, lot 27. And I said, "Huh? Your buddy Bruce? Aren't you buddies with that guy?" And I said, "Yeah, I grew up with him." He said, "Well, he's shot out there." I said, "Do what?" "He's shot." "Yeah, we just went out to assist the ambulance shooting out there, and he's over St. Mary's." And I said, whoa, are you kidding me? Because these guys usually just act bad. They're not really bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're I don't want to say posers, but because they have the potential to be something, but they're just really, they're almost too lazy to be badasses. They're too lazy to be real criminals.
Yeah.
And the story, what the story he tells is, this is his story, not my story. He's sitting in a lazy boy watching TV, and I don't remember what article he was watching. And they had just got done. I don't remember if they were frying. I think they were frying hamburgers in a pan. I don't think they were browning a hamburger, but so he had been, and it's a common mistake people do when they play with guns. They unload them, play with them, and then load them back up. Unload them, play with them, and then what happens is if they do that too much, you don't know if your gun's loaded or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's sitting there in a lazy boy watching TV, and he had a Ruger GP 100. He still got it, a little 2.5-inch 357 Magnum, and he was cocking it and pointing it at the TV and then riding the hammer forward. You know how you have a hammered gun and you got to hold the hammer back with your thumb and pull the trigger and ride it forward so that it goes on. Well, he had done that a half a dozen times or whatever. I guess he was dry firing the TV. Then he loaded it back up, and then he cocked it and realized that it was loaded. And he didn't want to keep it pointed at the TV, so he brought it kind of down in front of him and went to ride the hammer forward. But I guess in his words, his fingers were greasy from that making them hamburger patties, and the hammer slipped out from underneath his thumb, and it went off. 158 grain soft point, American Eagle soft point. And I said, "Dude, did it hurt?" And he goes, I realized I got hit. I was looking at the edge of my, I looked off the left arm of the chair to see where the bullet came out of. And that's when I seen the blood, and I realized, and it went through his femur. I mean, it shattered his femur. So, oh yeah. So the dude that's there with him, there's a dude, and it's funny. I just seen him at Sam's not too long ago. I went in the Sam's Club with my mask on. I always put my mask on in my hometown so people don't recognize me. And I was getting a cart, and this guy William called me by name. And I got my mask on, and he goes, "You don't know who I am," and I knew who he was, and I hadn't seen because he's retired. He's in the Navy for 25 years, and now he's moved back home, But he happened to be home on leave, and he was a Navy corpsman. And people out there that know anything about Navy corpsmen or Marines will realize when you shoot yourself, when you lose your one-person gunfight, that's the guy you need to be with. You know what I mean? So they saved him, and he put this rod in his leg, and he's kind of walked with a limp ever since. You know what I mean? And what's funny is I run to him at this gun shop the other day, and the gun shops are just absolutely full of the 2A crowd. And there's all these young kids, and they're buying AR-15s. They're just buying, right? And here me and him are two old dudes or whatever. And we're standing there, and the guy behind the counter is an old retired Army E8. These kids were asking about something, and the E8 looked over at us, the retiree, and said, "Hey, ask something about gunfights," or I don't remember. They were asking the dude behind the counter about gunfights, and then they looked over at us, and I said, "Bruce been shot." And Bruce said, "Well, I got shot with a pistol, so it don't really count. I mean, I don't know about AR-15s, but dude shot me with a 357." And they go, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." "Who shot you?" He said, Some old biker lived in a trailer out here by not McCubbins, but it's another one on Lesher Road." So he feeds right in the story, and he starts telling these guys, "Yeah, some old biker fucking around shot me over there. Hell, it's been 25, 30 years ago, And they walked out, and he didn't have the heart to tell him that it was him. He'd shot himself, Yeah. So sometimes you just fight yourself, I guess.
I guess so, man.
That's your worst enemy, right? Army of one. So and maybe what, I get so much out of these. Every so often, I think I'm gonna give a tale of Bruce and Mike and some of these clowns. Yeah, because they're cute when you think about it. I mean, I look back and it's funny. I mean, most people will probably think it's a terrible story, but I think it's a great story. I mean, if you haven't grown up with a guitar playing a biker with a switchblade that living in a trailer and shoots the place up every once in a while, you don't have any friends. I mean, you're sterile. I guarantee you, Bill Gates is on the news here lately, this all week, and I've been reading some of them. And boy, you want to talk about a vanilla dude? Talk about a waste of having all that money and be a plain Jane vanilla guy like that. Now you give old Bruce not even a hundredth of what Gates got. You give him $300 or $400 million, and you'd have stories that make Elon Musk look like the Pope. You know what I mean? But those guys never end up on top. I don't know why.
Well, I gotta tell you, I don't think our listeners are gonna be disappointed in the gunfight story.
Maybe, I don't. You never know. They might have their palate for entertainment might be very high. Their threshold for their what's it called in the dope world? Their tolerance for entertainment might be so high that that they'd have to listen to some of them professionals. So,
thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.